Hey, it's Doug. Wanted to pop in before the episode to just give you a heads up. So this series is going to be like 5 or 6 episodes, something like that. And Carl is joining me. However, this is a series of episodes that we actually recorded a few of them a while back. So we had this idea to do shows about happiness and cover a specific topic. So we created some outlines. We worked on these. We're having a good time doing it. It was around May of 2024. And then we started, each of us, traveling and doing stuff. So we stopped recording so much and basically didn't finish. I think we got 3 of them done, and I still have outlines for the others plus a couple other ideas. So we're going to start publishing them. And basically I was holding these episodes until we finished all of them so we could publish them week over week and have like 5 or 6 episodes covering a different topic, all hopefully relating back to happiness. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to have some other people join me for these other episodes, and I won't make this super long in here for the intro. So let's just listen to the episode.
I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer. That's from Jim Carrey. Welcome to the Mile High Fi podcast. I'm Carl Jensen with my co-host.
I'm Doug Cunnington.
Doug, so today we're going to do a multi-part series on happiness. In today's part, we're going to talk about some general ideas around happiness, including our definition of happiness, what FIRE has to do with happiness. We want to talk a little bit more about the definition of happiness, including contentment, the importance of experimentation, happiness by subtraction, and why happiness takes continuous work. In the next episode, we'll talk more about purpose. In episode 3, we'll talk about mindset practices. So first, what is happiness?
We lifted this from people that are smarter than us because that's just a better way to do things. So we will link up to an episode of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck with Mark Manson. Great podcast. And he interviewed Sonja L. I'm not sure how to spell or even pronounce her last name, but she has done a ton of research on happiness. So I'm going to kind of cherry pick a couple of the pieces. So there's 2 components of what happiness scientists generally consider. The first component is basically the experience of positive emotions. So you feel good, joy, tranquility, pride, affection, curiosity. We could all probably think of times when we felt that type of happiness. But the fact is, there is some negative emotion that people experience too. And sometimes that contrast actually helps out a little bit. So we won't dwell on the sadness portion of it, but those positive experiences are one component. The second component is basically having a sense that your life is good and you're satisfied with your life and you're progressing towards your life goals at a reasonable pace, which I haven't heard it stated like that, but it's so clear, like it makes sense. Those 2 components come together. And when you think about progressing towards your life goals at a reasonable pace, those are the challenging parts, I think. So it fits together perfectly, pretty concise. We'll reference this episode number 14 on the subtle art a couple times. So do check it out. It's a great conversation. And Carl, do you have any other things you want to add to happiness, or what you first think about when you think about happiness?
You said one thing there that I think is a huge key, and we're going to talk about it more in our mindset episode, but you said we're not going to dwell on the negative part. So I've read a lot about happiness in my life because I don't think I'm naturally the most happy person. And you said we're not going to dwell on the negative. And all this definition here, the frequent experience of positive emotions, less frequent experience of negative emotions, and knowing that your life is okay. These are things that come from you. They come from within. Your perception of how you think your life is determines your happiness. I think that's quite profound. There's nothing in here that even hints at a material possession or even maybe a little bit about your circumstances in life, which are important, but I don't think they're as important as people think, which we'll talk a little bit about more. But yeah, it all comes from you and what you entertain, what thoughts you entertain from your brain, how you process this, and your general thinking about yourself and what your situation is.
And I have two follow-up questions, which hopefully it's not going to derail the whole conversation here. They're related, though. Thank God they're related. One is, when did you start thinking about happiness? Where you're like, I want to be happier. I want to study this kind of like as a skill. Because when I think about it, it's only been in the last few years. Like in my 20s, oblivious. I don't know what's going on. It's a drunken haze of like not enough sleep and like working, and I don't even know. And then my 30s, I was kind of getting stuff together. So it's really been in the last couple of years where I'm like, okay, what things can I do to like help out my happiness? So that's question one. So what do you think? When did you start thinking about happiness as a skill?
Ooh, it would have been in my probably late 20s or early 30s, because at that time I had a good job. I actually had money. I didn't have to worry about the money part anymore, which was always a big source of anxiety in my life. And I thought that after I didn't have to worry about those things, I would be happier. And I guess I pretty much felt the same. Also happened when I fired. I'm a slow learner. So it was at that point, I'm like, hey, what's going on here? I thought I'd be happy. I don't have to have anxiety over the money part. I've graduated from college. I've got a good job and everything is going well. Why am I not happier in my life?
Okay. In the time span, so you said like your late 20s, and then when you fired, which was like you were 43, so that's roughly like 15-year period?
Yeah.
Okay. That is a pretty slow learner.
Yeah, very slow. And I don't think I figured it out yet, so I'm super slow.
We're going to get into it. It is a constant struggle, constant journey. The second idea is more lighthearted. I mean, to your point, like some people are super irritating and they're happy all the time. Like no matter what life throws at them, they like their job. They are just, there's no question here, but it's just like, you ever bump into those people that are just happy all the time?
Yes, it is.
They suck, huh?
That's the wrong way to put it, but it does annoy me because, these people will have something bad happen, and I was talking to someone who's like this. I'm like, hey, they had just gotten a new car. I thought it was new. They're like, oh, looks like you got a new car. Like, is that actually new or did you buy it used? And they're like, it's new to me, with this big smile and this attitude. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But yeah, I think my angst about those people comes from my jealousy, because those people are naturally happy. And we're going to talk a little bit about this more today, how there's a genetic component to happiness. And I think some people are just super happy and other people are like, what's the term? Eeyores or something. They're always negative and searching to be angry. And we all know people like that who are even less fun to be around than the super happy people, right?
Yeah. And that's and sometimes those Eeyore people, and I've been there myself, and I have an observation, which I think it doesn't even fit in with this discussion today, but basically like they could be on a great vacation and they're like finding problems all day. And like they let the problem interfere with the entire day, even though the rest of the day should be great. Yeah. And that's the worst. So I'm definitely more aware of going down that rabbit hole and like don't spiral out of control. Like never spiral out of control. Just pull it back and get back on track, you know?
Ooh, that is I was just thinking about that today because a bunch of things did not go right with my morning dog. My car got a flat tire. I had some plumbing issues and I had to catch myself. I'm like, dude, you can't. You have to catch yourself. You can't, because it just compounds, right? Because then your brain starts looking for more negative things and it gets worse and worse and worse. You get angry and angrier. And by the end of the day, you're like the worst person ever.
Yeah. So, okay. So we won't spiral out of control on this episode. So this is technically a fire podcast. And we want to talk about how fire relates to happiness. And our headline here is like, fire does not mean happiness itself. So what does that mean, Carl?
This might be a downer for some people because I think they expect fire to fix all their problems, and it won't. I was talking to J.L. Collins a couple months ago, and I was telling him how I thought money would fix all my issues or at least make me happier. He's like, well, why did you think that? I'm like, I have no idea. He's like, well, money will fix money problems. You shouldn't expect it to fix anything else. And not to diminish money problems. They're huge. It sucks if you struggle with money. But I had too high expectations of money. So if people are thinking that you're suddenly life is going to be awesome because you got this money and you're fired, that's not true. Like all your other problems are still going to be there, right? If you don't like your spouse, you're still not going to like them. And furthermore, it might make those issues worse because if you don't like your spouse and you leave your job, then you're going to be around them more often. So maybe you eliminated something by subtraction. You didn't like your job, but then you added other stuff to it. And problems will surface when you fire too. If you've got a job and kids and a busy life, that's a lot of time and a lot of lack of mental bandwidth. So once you free yourself, stuff will come up. So I think you had a great point here, Doug, too, about fire amplifying your character. What do you mean by that, Doug?
So like alcohol, which Carl, you and I are both fans of alcohol, but we're trying to get it more under control these days. That's not even the right way to say it, but we're trying to drink less for health reasons, basically, because it's fun and it does amplify your character. So we've probably seen people that after a few drinks, that makes them a little louder or a little more outgoing, and it amplifies what's going on underneath because the inhibition is lifted a little bit. And it could be positive or negative. Of course, like anything, if you add too much and you're uninhibited, then you can become generally out of control. So, I mean, I think it probably applies to money too. So basically, if you're not happy just because you add money into the situation, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to be happy. It will potentially magnify your unhappiness. And the thing is, back to the Jim Carrey quote, which I love. And once I saw it, I was like, man, this really makes sense. The thing is, a lot of people, once they reach their goal, whatever it is, and we're talking money here, so they reach their money goal or their fame goal, they cannot blame any of their unhappiness on money anymore. Then they're like, oh, fuck, it's actually me. Like I have all the money, I could buy my way out of so many money problems, but the real problem is in my head. And then it can lead to depression. Hopefully it leads them to a path where they try to solve the problem and figure out what's going on in their head. But that's the main thing. Like if you're happy and you add more money to it, you're probably going to be happier. Like there's a few studies that have shown that, which we'll share in a future episode. But basically, fire can amplify your character, whether it's positive or negative.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Whether we like it or not, I think a job defines us more than we like. It takes away a lot of our time. We feel we're supposed to be certain people around our coworker, and we might not be able to be the true form of ourselves. I think J.D. Roth had a good thing about this. If you want to, I can't remember how he put it, but the way I remember it sounds kind of vulgar. Like if you really want to see yourself naked, like how you really are, your purest form. I mean, I don't want to see you naked, Doug, just to be clear, but get rich and then you'll see who you really are. You are wearing pants today, right?
Today, yeah.
Okay, good.
Today.
We had to have that conversation, but thank you for
chaps.
doing that.
I think you call these chaps, right? Where your butt shows. Is that right?
I think that's the name.
So you mentioned that when you fired, and even after you quit your job, because like you fired and then you worked, you sort of tapered down and you worked part-time and then you finally quit. How long did it take before you realized that the job and fire wasn't going to solve all of your problems and that you needed to dig a little deeper?
Like the next day.
Really that fast? What was it? You were like, oh, son of a bitch, this is not what I thought.
Yeah, well, I think it was good and I appreciated my situation. I remember like walking around Roosevelt Park, which is by our house. I'm like, okay. Like what now? I kind of feel the same. I'm happy I don't have to go back on Monday to do that thing. But what is the next thing?
And with that, like, is it because you like to be busy and productive?
Yeah, I think so. But I also thought I would just Like if I was a 6 on a scale of 1 to 10 happiness, I thought I would just be an like 8 for whatever reason. I guess I maybe overweighted the amount of happiness that would come from subtracting my job. It definitely made life better, but it wasn't, at that time, it wasn't the worst thing in my life ever.
Were you getting a large amount of stress from your job? We know you had like a very stressful day and you wanted to figure out how to retire. And then about 4 years later, you were able to retire, 5 years later, something like that. So yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on that? Like, subtracting the negative should be good. So did you actually get rid of stress, or did you like replace it with something else?
Well, I guess at that time it wasn't particularly stressful, but I guess I just didn't know what my next move in life. And I think I had I don't know if complex is the right word, but I felt like I had to be super busy all the time. That's what the past 2 decades of my life had looked like. I'm like, okay, what happens now? What is going to keep me busy or give me purpose?
And you didn't take up napping?
No, I've taken like 1 or 2 naps in my whole 7 years of early retirement.
Got to check it out, man. I keep telling you, check out this nap thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm working on my sleep. If I'm super tired, I can do it, but it'll happen, Doug. Might need to take some supplements or something.
Okay. So where does happiness come from? And this is something that you've cited before, again, from Sonja L. What is this?
Yeah, so Sonja used to put some specific percentages around these 3 characteristics, and I'm not even going to say what the percentages were because that might bias people, but she said in the past that the most important one was genetics, so just your natural state, your disposition. Second was activities, what your life looks like, your work, what gives you purpose. And the really interesting one is she said by far the smallest was life circumstances. I've got a thought about these, but I'm curious, what do you think about those weightings? Again, genetics being the most important, activities being second, and life circumstances being the least most important.
I feel like if you just asked me, I would probably say the activities should probably be the majority. I'll throw percentages since I'm making it up. I would say like 60 to 75% is around the activities. And one thing that she mentioned in the interview with Mark Manson is the life circumstances can be extremely important if they're extremely negative. So if you live in a war zone or you're in an abusive relationship or household or something like that, that can be the majority because you're in such a bad situation. But for most people, we're not in that negative of a situation. So a lot of it does come down to the activities and genetics. And I guess, frankly, I don't know enough about the genetic component. I would say, whatever, 20%, but I have no idea. What do you think before you ran across this information?
I think her numbers are pretty accurate. I guess the life circumstances one jumped out at me a little bit, but I think what you said about, like, if you're living in a war zone, that's extremely bad and that's horrible, or if you don't have enough food. But there was one story. I used to work with this guy, and I went to his house, and he had like a 5,000 square foot house with 3 people living in this house. And he was from China, and I'm like, hey, Sean, this is a pretty nice house. He's like, well, yeah, it is, but I'll tell you something else. I'm like, what's that? He's like, when I was back in China, the house I lived in was like a quarter of this size, and we had 3 generations of people living in there. My parents lived there, and my grandparents lived in the same house. And you know what? I'm like, no, what? What's up? He's like, I was happier there. I'm like, wow, that's so interesting. I guess it's pretty obvious now. He probably had great family connections, and they did stuff where now he probably felt a little bit more isolated. But I would guess that most people would overweight the life circumstances. They think they're more important than they actually are. And I think that's kind of a result of our society. I love capitalism, but TV is telling you got to own a certain truck or live in a certain place to be happy or go on a certain vacation. And I think people are brainwashed by all that to overweight their life circumstances. But I think she's on the money. I think genetics are probably the most important, like the happy-go-lucky people whose life doesn't appear so great, but they're so happy anyway. I think the activities are probably the hardest, finding the meaningful work and the purpose. But again, it's so interesting how the life circumstances are probably by far the least important.
To layer on top, I think with social media and you're getting like a curated representation of, what people's lives are like or their vacations or whatever, like you're always doing cool stuff. So when I see your feed, you're always trying to flaunt it in front. No, I'm just kidding. But it's not accurate. Like it's not accurate. And we forget that because like we just see the curated version of someone's life most of the time. Some people are a little more authentic, but then you get into a weird situation where it's like, are they being like fake authentic to like appear more relatable or something different? But anyway, I think social media, especially like for, people your kids' age, for example, where they like grow up sort of natively on social media, whether they're on their phones or I think you guys have done a good job, but they're still on their computers and whatever. So it's way different than what, like when we were kids, you just go outside, fucking play, you disappear for hours, you come back when it's dark. Did your parents like yell at you like, hey, come back home? Like, did you just go roam around free?
Yeah, it was the opposite. They would yell at us if we stayed at home too much. They'd be like, get the hell out of the house, go play with your friends. And yeah. Same thing, come back like at dusk or nighttime. And
now I think about it, I'm like, we would just like ride our bikes on like busy roads, like disappear, like go miles away. And when I think about the age, I was like 10. And I think about a 10-year-old now, like riding around, I'd be like, why isn't that person's parents like taking care of them? But yeah, we were just like roaming around and getting into trouble or whatever.
Yeah, it was great.
Playing on construction sites. It really was like Beavis and Butthead.
I spent many, many hours playing with fire, speaking of Beavis and Butthead.
Have you seen the new movie, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe?
I have not.
It's pretty good. It's like a little bit more modern writing, and it's pretty good. I mean, same old guys. They're good kids.
Okay.
You should check it out. I think you'll like it.
It would be funny, going back to your thing about social media, if everyone had to do a post like at maybe 3 times a day, but you don't know when. Like you could be taking a dump and straining, and then boop, your phone goes off. Okay, take a selfie within the next 15 seconds and see what people's life really look like. Like people be plunging their toilets, especially me, because everyone clogs it up. You'd see the unglamorous part instead of the top 5%.
And you guys have a ton of like toilet brushes too, right?
Yeah, Mindy's a little bit obsessed with that for some reason.
Does she have a specific brand that she really likes, or?
Whenever we're at IKEA, she buys a bunch of them.
Okay. That's cool.
The new ones just work better. I'm like, I don't know. They're all kind of the same to me.
What do you do with the old ones? You just throw them in the landfill, or are you guys recycling these for other stuff?
Yeah, I think she throws them out. She's calmed down lately. I think I've shown her the errors of her wasteful ways.
Yeah. Yeah, you could recycle those, repurpose them into something else.
Maybe
like a glass cleaner or something?
Yeah, hairbrush.
Luckily, I don't need hairbrush. Okay. So we will get into a few ideas around creating happiness in your life. So Carl, why don't you kick this off?
Yeah. So some of these we're just going to touch on superficially for now, because we're going to dive on them into future episodes. But we want to cover some of the very basics to set up those future episodes. So my first one, and I think I learned this pretty soon after I retired, I'm curious to get your take on this, is I think having a routine is good. And I guess I was a little bit resistant to that, Doug, because like, I've had a routine for all my life. I wake up, help the kids get ready, eat, go to work. And I kind of felt like a routine was more the same, or having a job. But then I learned how good a good routine can be, especially when you're retired early, because you can do activities at the times that are where your energy levels are good for whatever that is. For example, I feel like I have a lot of energy in the morning, so I'd like to go to the gym in the morning and do stuff like that. There's times where I'd like to do my work and where I fulfill the purposeful activities in my life. And we're going to talk about there in episode 2. But yeah, how about you, Doug? What does your routine look like, and how important do you think routines are to basic happiness?
I love the routines also. I think, as you mentioned, exercise, super important. I usually go for a walk with the dog. So I've had a dog, except for maybe 6 months in between dogs, my entire adult life. So as soon as I got a job and kind of got settled in, I got a dog. And it provides, like kids, it provides like structure to the day because you have to walk the dog and you have to feed the kids and get them out the door and take care of them and all that stuff. I know they're not equivalent, everyone, but it does give you some structure. And, that exercise is very light. It's just a walk, but, I guess highlighting the research about getting out, getting, natural sunlight early in the day. Like I've been doing that just naturally, walking like 2-3 miles, like pretty much every day, unless it's extreme inclement weather. Like I'm out there walking and it's great. So, some of the other stuff that you mentioned around like routine, as far as like getting a little bit of work done, I think you mentioned that as well. But yeah, there's like that optimal time where I feel like my brain's active. I'm not tired yet. And the morning typically works well for me. So like during the day, that sort of routine works well. And then in the afternoon, I could wind down, do some other stuff, do something social, and a little flexibility, right? Like every day doesn't always work out like that. But if I could do that 75% of the time, like that's pretty good. So
yeah. And I think the other thing a routine does for you is keep you honest. It keeps you, if I'm going to be at the gym at 8 or 8:30, I'm not going to go on some YouTube rabbit hole, and which I've done before. And then 2.5 hours later, you're still watching stupid videos or looking at social media. So I think a routine is really important for that. But then like exercise is such a core component of happiness. I'll go through these real quick and then we can riff on them a little bit. The work and having the purpose in your life, some social activity every day, even if you're an introvert. I think we all need to be around humans. The next one I have, which is something I have not been very good at, is having downtime, just giving yourself time to do nothing at all, or maybe read a book or whatever. It doesn't have to be time where you're adding value to your life or anyone else's life. It can just be, I hate this word, but like wasted time. Someone just had a good quote. They say, time wasted is not, I'm going to butcher it. Have you heard this quote before?
It sounds like it's something I've heard before, but I don't know.
Okay, that was not. It'll come to me at some point, or I'll say it in a future episode. Something like wasting time is not wasted time. That was not it.
It's fucking profound. You ever listen to those podcasts where the people just give quotes back and forth, like they're trying to outdo each other, and it's like, have you heard one like this?
Yes.
And throwing in a quote every now and then is good, but when they were doing it for like 2 hours, I was like, it's like a pissing contest on who knows more quotes. And like, eventually I was like, this is dumb. Like these guys, and I love both of the guys. I won't mention who they are as if it matters because they both have huge podcasts, but basically, thanks for sharing that incomplete quote. That was great.
Yeah. Awesome. Highlight of the show. And one other component to me is just being outdoors. So much value. Like I have to be outside every day or else I don't feel fulfilled. I feel kind of shitty.
Okay. Is there like some certain amount of time that you want to be outside, and can it be like on the greenway where there's like, roads and structure, or do you want to be like in the forest where it's only trees and, no man-made structures in your field of view?
Yeah, I think just being outside has a lot of value. I spent like an hour this morning moving logs in my backyard, and even that's good, just to be outside in the sun, getting your vitamin D. It is good to be out for a walk in the woods, and I think that has a higher value, especially if you're in a place of beauty, like maybe Rocky Mountain National Park. But just to be outside, I don't know. Do you think that applies to everyone, or do you think I would say you probably have the same value. So that's question number one. And if you do you think this applies to everyone, or do you think there are people like, screw the outside, I've got allergies, I just want to be in my basement all day?
I pretty much agree with you. Being outside is awesome. I think I probably undervalue or don't remember how much better it is to be in a place where I can't see man-made structures or whatever. And then whenever I get back, I'm like, oh, that was actually better than just walking on the greenway. And I don't know. I would think that most people would benefit from being outside a little bit more. Or just being outside generally, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess everyone's different, and I imagine there's some people that don't like the outdoors, but those people are wrong. I'm happy to say that those people are wrong.
Maybe they had a bad experience with a bear or something. Who are we to judge?
Yeah. But to your point, like maybe it's like some people don't like the trees, pollen or whatever. And some people love the beach and other people don't like the, smelly salt water and seaweed and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, maybe you have to find the right place. Other people love like Moab and the desert because it's dry and it doesn't make their hair frizzy or it's bad on their skin or whatever. So it's like, find the right place for you.
Cool.
I think.
Are you a beach or mountain person?
Definitely a mountain person. I could appreciate the beach, but it depends on the climate overall and a couple other factors. But I love San Diego when I was hanging out in the Mission Beach, Ocean Beach area there. But I mean, we moved to Colorado, so we like the mountains.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Same for you?
I would say I'm probably more of a water person. We lived on a lake before and that was super good. And I don't know, there's just something cool about hearing running water or hearing the waves, but I guess living on a mountain stream and just being able to open your window and hear that would be pretty magical too. I don't know. Yeah, I want it all. I want an alpine lake or a river. Okay, so we talked about exercise, work purpose, social activity, downtime, and being outdoors. A lot of these things can be framed with a routine. I'm going to exercise in the morning. I'm going to do my work after lunch. I might have some social activity after dinner. But there's one thing that kind of goes against all of this, and that is novel experiences. And we're going to talk about this in episode 5. But just to tell the listeners what we're talking about there, it's if you talk to anyone in the FI community, and I think most people, like, what do you like to do in life? I like to travel. And I personally think that's a little bit overrated, but I think most people say that because it's a novel experience. You're living in someplace else, and there's a lot of different ways to have novel experiences in your life. You don't have to go somewhere else, but I think that's super important to happiness. The last thing I'll say about that is because we get used to whatever we're doing in life. Like, I think we could have the best life in the world, like jets and all that, but if it looked the exact same every day, it would become boring. We'd get adjusted to it. And that's why these novel experiences are so important.
Yeah, there's some really cool benefits with novel experiences other than just like sort of the obvious stuff. And I can't wait to get to that one. So before we get into some specific tips for today, we do have a sponsor, and that's GhostBed. Now, one thing that Carl, is I snore sometimes because we shared a room once or twice in some conferences, and you're a good roommate. I actually enjoy sharing a room with you, but I snore occasionally, right? It's horrific.
I've heard louder snores before, but yes, you do snore. I probably fart, so hopefully we balance each other out. It's
a perfect yin and yang situation. So a couple quick things. And actually, I don't snore all the time. Often when I'm drinking, if I have a cold, a lot of people do snore at our, middle-aged sort of condition that we're in. But I have a couple tips on snoring. So do you snore much?
Probably 1 out of every 50 nights. It's hard because I don't know what I'm snoring, but Mindy has told me a couple times. Okay. She has heard it.
And like when we shared rooms, I rarely hear you. So couple quick tips. One, I have started to occasionally like stack up a couple pillows and just have a little bit of an elevation. So my head's up higher. So I think it brings my like head forward a little bit. So my tongue doesn't fall back in my throat and force me to snore. Can you imagine what I'm talking about? Does that make sense?
No, but it sounds great.
Yeah, just imagine my tongue and it relaxing. So basically that actually seemed to help quite a bit. And I had a cold, a sort of a nagging cold that stuck around with me for way too long. And I started to like sit up a little bit higher. And Elizabeth, my wife, said, "You're not snoring like hardly at all." So that's tip 1. And the second tip is similar to the Breathe Right nasal strips. You know those? You've seen those commercials or whatever?
Yes.
So I've tried those and they didn't work that well. But what I found in the snoring section of the drugstore was an internal nasal dilator. Sounds sexy, doesn't it? Basically, it's a small, sort of a plasticky, disposable silicone type device, and it fits inside your nostrils, and it just kind of holds them open a little bit. And it's way more effective for me than the Breathe Right strips.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I've suggested it to a couple friends, and you have to get used to it. It's a little uncomfortable having it in your nose, but it really does open it up. And if you're snoring, it's worth giving it a shot, because we've had some friends recently, and like the snoring was getting a little intense, and I was like, I have a few tips. I'll share them with you later. Now, I think it's worth trying, and they're relatively inexpensive to try those couple things. So one thing I'll point out, I know GhostBed it's like the dual king bed system, and it's adjustable. So you actually can elevate yourself a little bit, just like I was talking about, instead of me stacking up pillows. It's just what I had handy. Yeah, snoring is the worst for the partner. It's just horrible. And they also have another device, which we're not going to spend too much time on this, but it's the GhostBed massage topper. It's about 3 inches thick, and it's an air pressure massager. Have you busted yours out yet?
I have not. It is on my list to do this weekend.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So I got mine out and tested it, and it is very relaxing. I found it to be very relaxing with the vibration on. And I know that you like things that vibrate.
I do.
You love them.
Yes.
I only laid on my back and turned the vibration on to high, but I think you might like it if you lay face down.
Okay. Does it go to 11, like if I'm at 10 and I need that extra little bit to push myself over?
Only 3, but we could relabel it so it's like 1, 2, 3, but we could change the last one to 11 for you.
Just like happiness, it's all about expectations.
So GhostBed is a family-owned business with 20 years of experience and 60,000 5-star reviews. They're made in the USA. The mattresses are anyway. I don't know about the mattress topper. You'll have to check the fine print over there, but we appreciate the support. And you can go to ghostbed.com/milehighfi to save 10%.
Yeah, I can't wait to try mine. And I understand there's an app associated with it too. Like it's got its own remote, but you can also control it with your phone.
Yeah, that's right. I haven't downloaded that yet, but I think it gives you more like flexibility with the programming and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. Nice. Okay, our next tenet of happiness is one I don't think people focus enough on, and this is one you've brought up a couple times, and this is happiness by subtraction. So I think a lot of people think, well, what can they add to their life? Like maybe I can add an object or a service or a vacation to make myself happier, but not enough people consider their pain points in life and what they could potentially remove to be happy. What do you think about this, Doug? Like it seems like the default answer or the default proposition in the FIRE community is that everyone should remove their jobs from their life. What do you think about that?
It's so individual. I generally lean towards people will probably be happier without their job, but it's just based on my experience. And my experience was a corporate environment that was not good for my personality. And the thing is, I know there's a huge range of jobs, and a certain job for a certain person can be rewarding. They could work with good people, and maybe the related things like what they wear, the commute, some other pieces are actually positive. So if like everything comes together well and the job makes you happy, then the job makes you happy. I don't think people have to quit, but I can speak to the people that have a similar background as me in consulting or a corporate environment at a big company. And generally, those people are unhappy. I mean, you could look at, there's plenty of fucking studies. Like, I'm not making it up. Most people are not content with their job, or there's some piece that's negative, whether it's your boss or like the raises that you get or the cost of living adjustments that you don't get, or fill in the blank, right? There's a lot of negative shit. So for me, and those people with the jobs where there's plenty of negatives that stack up, I think that compounds and it makes you unhappy. So when you remove it, I can tell you when I got laid off, I was fucking thrilled. It was awesome.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw something else at you here, Doug. I think there's a lot of people who say they love their job and they would do it for free and all that. I don't think they're quite telling the truth there, or I think they're deceiving themselves. If that really is the case, why don't you just take if you're FIRE, take all your proceeds and give it to charity, or volunteer to work there for free. I don't think most people would agree to do that. But even if you've got the best job in the world, if you would do that, it's still taking up like 40 to 50 hours of your life. And I think the people who would say that and do that, and this comes from Diana from Economy, lack imagination. There's so much other shit and ways to spend time in the world. And if your job is the best thing you can come up with, doing that same thing for the next decade or two of your life, I don't think you've thought hard enough or experienced enough of what the rest of the world has to offer. What do you think about that?
I agree. And it comes down to opportunity cost. And, part of it is like not being creative enough to find something else to do with your time. But the thing is, like, people could probably think of like some volunteer situation where like it's clearly a better ROI on their time, especially, again, I'm applying a corporate job lens on this. So it's like I did billing software for a wireless company. And it's like, I could definitely spend my time on something better that like helps my direct community versus like, how they're going to build the new iPhone data because it's a little bit different than the last one, right? That basically is a huge waste of time. For me to spend like 40 or 50 hours a week doing this, that's bananas. Like I could definitely figure out a better thing to do. And it comes down to an opportunity cost. So,
yeah, totally true. Another point, we're bad at understanding what makes us happy, but it's really easy to figure out what we don't like. And if you think you struggle with this, just go through your average day or average weekend when you have time to yourself and, I've got to mow the lawn. Do I hate my life at that moment? Or I've got to clean the house or rotate the tires. So it's much easier to figure out what we don't like in life. Understanding what we do like and what really makes us happy, I think, is pretty difficult for a lot of people. I think a lot of us deceive ourselves with that, but it's easier to subtract stuff. What's something big that you have subtracted from your life in the past decade, or it could be recent?
Funny enough, when I got laid off, right, got rid of the job, that was better. But then I became self-employed and created a business and went that route. But funny enough, as I decided that I was at a good spot and I didn't need to keep growing, I started reducing the amount of work that I was doing. And surprise, that actually made me happy again. So for me, even the job that I created, there were pieces where eventually it was not as exciting anymore. Speaking of novel experiences, it just wasn't novel anymore. So I was like, this is now boring. So if I can not do this anymore and do something else, I'll be better off. So yeah, what about you? Something you removed in the last decade or so?
Oh, yeah, this felt super weird. But the one that feels weird is hiring a cleaning person. Like, this is so strange because it's clearly a task we've done for ourselves for our whole life. But so good to have someone come in there who's really good and actually admits to enjoying cleaning. So they're doing something they're passionate about and we're paying them to do it. And we're freeing up time for ourselves. And not like it was terrible, but there's other stuff I would rather be doing. So that was huge. And one thing I despise is working on cars. You ever like change the starter, alternator? Like I've rebuilt an engine before. It's horrible. Like the bolt won't let loose and then the thing slips and your knuckles get all bloody. It's just miserable, nasty work. So now I'll do very, very minor stuff on a car, and which I don't really even have to do anymore because we have EVs. Now I outsource that. I'm like, I don't care. Just take care of it. Tell me what it costs and tell me when to pick the thing back up.
Yeah. And I think, people can review their past and think about times where they got something, they bought something that they thought was going to make them happy, but then it didn't, or it only lasted a very short time. Like probably, cars are probably that way, right? You're like, oh, I really want to get this car. I won't ask you about your Tesla, but basically after a little while, you get used to the new car and it's just normal and it doesn't make you as happy as it did. Although you probably still get pretty excited when you get in your car.
No. And I knew this going into it. I'm like, it's just a car. It's not going to make me happy. I got it to keep tabs on the FSD, which is kind of cool to see the progression in that. But in the end, it's just something else that you have to take care of. And it's a utility to get from point A to B. But yeah, one final point on this topic is fire can actually help improve a lot of this happiness by subtraction stuff. For example, we don't have to deal with traffic anymore because we can go to Home Depot at like 11 a.m. on a Tuesday instead of driving after work where there's a million people there. We can take reasonable flights. I don't have to wait for a Saturday after work or whatever to take a flight. I could do it whenever I want to. Yeah, and FIRE just gives you the time to think a lot about this stuff and really figure out what you like and especially what you don't like.
I'll tell you though, I mean, when I look at the flights and I'm like, man, it's like 4 times as much to fly at a normal time than whatever the horrible 5:35 a.m. flight. And yeah, I mean, it's a case by case basis because we wake up early, but still, if you're trying to catch a super early flight, it's like, oh shit, I got to wake up at 3 or something like that, or maybe stay at the hotel like close by. But yeah, it's still a struggle, even though you could afford. Do you feel that pain too? You're like, oh.
I do. And you have like a cutoff, like say it's $250 to take the 6 a.m. flight, $250, but like $550 to take one that leaves at 11 a.m. Which one do you take?
I think it would depend on which direction we're flying in, because if it's a favorable direction and I take that 6 a.m. flight, it's like you almost get a full day at the place.
Yeah.
So that is a tough one. That's a great scenario because I don't have a specific answer. What about you?
If I was flying alone, I probably would do the early one. But if I was flying with my family and 3 other people who are going to complain heavily, I'd do the more expensive one, which results in us paying a lot more because we're paying for 4 people to do it.
Yeah.
One thing I did is we're going to Stuttgart, and on Bob Haines' suggestion, one of the people we're going with who was on a previous episode, we're going to fly out of New Jersey, I think at like 8 a.m., and we land in Heathrow at 8 p.m., and then we'll just go to bed at that point, and it'll be like hopefully a normal day, so we won't have to deal with jet lag or anything like that. And it costs us more, but not that much more. So
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of perfect. And I guess you'll just stay up on the flight the whole time, so you're dead tired.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. All right. Up next is happiness is ever changing. So you can't expect that all the things that make you happy right now will make you happy later.
You need novel experiences in your life. Even if you have the best life in the world, doing the same thing all the time gets boring. I think that's kind of why I liked my job as a software developer. I was writing code, which was the same core thing, but there were new challenges and new components of the software we had to write. So it wasn't doing the exact same thing every time.
Can you think of some other examples where maybe like after you retired, where you were like, all right, this has actually been pretty good? Because you've been retired for a few years now, like 7, 8 years, 7?
Yeah.
So anything's early on where you were like, all right, this is making me happy and it did the job for a little while. And then now you're like, it's not as good.
Yeah, I think all my home construction stuff. So when I quit a couple years later, we just bought this new house. I had to finish the basement, build the deck, all these different construction projects, which I never done. I had always relied on my dad for the electrical part, and then he passed away. So I had to figure all that stuff out myself. And I was actually thinking about this the other day. So I wanted to finish the basement. So I did that. It was fun while it lasted. I had to figure out a bunch of puzzles, like how to do the framing around ductwork, how to wire it, sub panels, like all this crazy stuff. But now I don't think I'd do it again. It wouldn't be as fun because it's one and done. I figured it out, and probably same thing with a lot of the other projects too. It was fun to do it the one time, but I'm not sure I'd want to do it again.
Yeah. And for me, I get obsessed with stuff over the years, and I'll stick with something for whatever, 5, 10 years. And I don't necessarily stop doing it, but for a little while, I was obsessed with brewing beer, and I was brewing, 1 or 2 times a week, and all my friends revolved around the homebrew beer scene. And it was a lifestyle, which unfortunately means you drink all the time. I also got into beer judging, which is pretty fun. I still judge some now, but way less. Like in the height of all my beer activities, I would potentially judge, a few times each competition, which means like for a week or 2, I would judge like 5 times. And you could imagine, we don't drink a ton at any one sitting, but over time it does add up. And then often you're hanging out, you're like, oh, we're going to go grab some food afterwards. And you have a couple beers after that. So it amounts to drinking for like several hours, and, it wrecks your sleep and all that kind of stuff. And at this point, that stuff doesn't make me as happy. And it was fun while it lasted, but, through the lack of novelty and just getting used to it, and then like the health impacts that is, they're very apparent now. I don't spend as much time like brewing beer or judging beer or anything like that. But for a little while, I was like pumped to do any activity around it, anytime, all the time.
Just one point of clarification. I thought when you like wine judges, I thought they spit the wine out. Is that true? And beer judges don't do the same thing?
I don't know anything about wine judges, so if they're spitting it out, that seems wasteful.
Did you ever have a really bad one that you're just like, and it came shooting out?
No, but we have popped the cap, and then it basically was like a geyser.
Yeah.
So very rare, but it has happened. There've been some really bad ones. Typically it smells worse than it actually tastes.
Okay.
But some of them you're just like, I'll taste a little bit. And then, the feedback you give is like, oh, it doesn't taste as bad as it smells. You always give them tips. It's all very positive. You're like, oh, maybe check your sanitation, blah, blah, blah. So
yes,
you're never mean on the score sheets. So, okay. What's next?
I think the main point of this, which we'll riff on more, is happiness takes work, and it takes continuous work. It's not something you solve one time and you're done for the rest of your life. It's going to be a lifelong journey, which is fun too. That sounds kind of like a downer, but it's fun moving on and trying new things, which brings us to our next point. Experimentation is super important, because how do you know you're going to like something unless you've tried it? I'll go back to my house cleaner thing. Like, we hired that and I was very skeptical of it. And then I came into the house after they were done. I'm like, oh, wow, this is so good. And it made me way happier than I thought it ever would. I'm like, now we don't have to do all this stuff, and it's great. So I'm glad we had that experiment. And I'm trying to think of an experiment that has not gone well. And I can't think of any at the second. I'm curious, Doug, have you had a money experiment with something that has not gone well or that you wouldn't do again?
I'll use an example from some friends. They had sort of a life-changing medical event, and they decided they wanted to, live life. They weren't in the fire community, so they bought a house like way out in the mountains. Beautiful property, high elevation. So the winters lasted a long time, and they got like many feet of snow every year, or like every winter. I mean, it was like a shitload of snow. Like this is a cold place. But basically they realized that was not right for them, and they moved to a bigger town and basically lost a lot of money. This was a few years ago. They lost a lot of money trying to sell the place. It was on the market for years, but they realized the town wasn't big enough. They didn't have a big social scene. The winter was too long. It was too cold. Just like a number of things stacked on top of each other to make it not work. And they could have easily tested it. So it's like that didn't work for them. They didn't test it well. They like went into this whole thing like, head first into the deep end, and then they had to back it out, which they were able to do it. But, our point is you could experiment with this stuff. They could have rented the place for like 6 months or whatever. Like they could have tested this on a much smaller scale and then understood they didn't like it. So
yeah, I think that testing stuff is so important, and there's so many ways to do it now. Like, I guess the one experiment that I did fail was when we bought an Acura NSX, this fancy sports car that I idolized as a kid. And then you own it, and it's like, this is just another thing that you got to be careful for. It's in your garage taking up space, and you don't want to drive it in the rain, and it costs more to maintain and all that. And I could have just rented that car, gone on Turo and find someone who had one and checked it out for a day or two, or maybe gone to an NSX owners club and talked to people before taking that dip. But I'll say, even it sounds like your friends, it didn't work out so well. They might have lost some money, but I don't think if you do experiment and buy the car or the house, it's probably not going to be a financial decision that wrecks you unless you get your timing really wrong. Like, for example, we sold our car for the exact same price that we bought it for. Houses typically go up in value unless you get caught in a recession or something like that, but you're probably not going to be ruined by these financial decisions, even if you make them and they don't work out.
Yep. And I'm sure I've had some, tests that failed, but I don't remember them until I think of them. And I'm like, oh yeah, we didn't like doing that thing. Oh, I have one. And it doesn't always hold true, but eating out at really expensive restaurants, I have a big head. I think I can cook food pretty well. And I know other people and other folks in my family can cook really well. So typically, if I order a steak out, I'm like, this is this is so expensive unless they're doing some crazy dry age and they time it perfectly. It's either not cooked right all the way. And I've been to some fairly nice steakhouses. There's one in Atlanta, Rathbun's, or at least it was very popular 15 years ago. I don't know what's going on with it now, but it was pretty good. But that said, I've cooked steaks for you that were better than ones that I've had at the nicest restaurants, just because we could time it right. We can babysit the steak versus they're running a business and they have to get it out the door and little mistakes happen. So typically I'm happier at just an average place or a hole in the wall. I'm way more impressed because expectations are low. You go to an expensive place, you expect it to be really fucking awesome.
Yeah, I guess I've done that experiment too. We went to a Michelin star rated restaurant and it was very good, but I didn't think it was a Mexican restaurant. It wasn't 10x as good as Taco Bell, and that's what it cost.
Yeah. And it sounds silly because you compare it to Taco Bell, but we can go to an average, a pretty good Mexican restaurant, and it's they're going to be roughly equivalent, and one costs 4 times as much, not 10 times as much or whatever. But yeah, food's tough. And our expectations are pretty high. Or you go to I sent you to Dapoki Shack on the Big Island in Hawaii, right? In a parking lot, hole in the wall place, cool owner and all that stuff. And it was relatively inexpensive, right?
Yeah, it was great.
Awesome. It's so fresh, so good. So I like the underdog versus going to the place that is almost guaranteed not to meet expectations because they're too high.
Yeah. Is it that the food is really that good or everyone just wants to go there because everyone else wants to go there?
And if people have recommendations for places that we should try, send them in. I'm interested, but I have a feeling the average place is probably good enough for Carl and I are simple people.
I know. And there's a lesson in that too. Just a really good cheeseburger or pizza. There's one place in Longmont that I love for their pizza. It's probably, if I could eat one thing for the rest of my life, that would be it. One of those two things.
Yeah. So you give them a shout out. What is it?
It is Urban Field. They're I can't remember what they call it. They're sausage one, but they've got big garlic cloves on there. Have you ever had that one before?
Yes. Yeah. That's the Detroit style, right?
Yes.
So good. Yeah. That thick crust. You're a thick crust guy, right?
I am a thick crust guy. I like my carbs.
It's like Pizza Hut.
And our final point, and this is probably the most important one, but again, this is one of the least obvious ones because we talked about where happiness comes from, genetics, activities, and life circumstances. But the one thing that all three of those have in common is, well, not the genetic part, but the other two, it is mindset and how you perceive your situation, how you perceive your life, and how you entertain the thoughts that your brain throws at you. So happiness has to come from you. You shouldn't expect to be able to buy things or to be able to create it externally. It's that inner versus outer scorecard. I think I said this. This is kind of a jerk question to ask people, but I was talking to someone who wanted to buy some fancy car. I'm like, well, and I think this was actually the premise for a movie. I'm like, well, would you still buy that fancy car if it just looked like a Honda Accord to everyone else? Or are you actually buying it for yourself and its fancy European driving characteristics? Or are you buying it because you think other people are going to perceive you differently? And Shallow Hal, was that? I don't think I ever saw it, but isn't it she looks different to him and he's, I don't know.
Jack Black.
Yeah.
I've heard of the movie. I don't think I saw it either.
Okay, so that reference is out the window, but I think he perceives someone as different, and I don't know, he's shallow. What do you think about that, Doug? Do you think this inner versus outer scorecard is overrated? Do you think people can create happiness by satisfying that outer scorecard? Is it is black and white as I'm stating it is?
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, I have said on a few episodes, like, I don't care what people think about me so much, which it's for the general population. I care what my friends think and my family and stuff like that. So that matters to an extent. I do have pretty thick skin, but I think it serves me really well because it's easy for me. Like, I mean, if you don't care what other people think, you're not relying on that external validation. And that feels really good. And I don't know, I mean, I guess everyone's probably their experiences growing up with your family, with your sort of school situation, like that probably shapes things quite a bit. And, you know, whatever my experience was, like, made it pretty good for me to be, you know, confident where I'm not looking for external validation so much. And over the years, obviously this can, like anything, can go into a negative area. So it's like I have hopefully a healthy balance of it. But I suspect if you're trying to make everyone else happy, it's just going to drive you crazy. Like, I don't see a way for that to work out, especially, you know, making fun of social media again. With social media, I don't see how that's going to work because people will always have an issue with whatever you're doing. You know, speaking of the car thing, right? Like, fancy European car, if you put that in front of the right people, they're like, that's wasteful, that's a gas guzzler. Like, they'll have issues with it versus like, hey, this is a very small electric car or e-bike or whatever. So if you're trying to make other people happy, there will always be people that don't like what you're doing.
Yes. One point to this, if you're trying to satisfy that outer scorecard, you're not being a true, authentic version of yourself. You're acting like someone in order to fit in with some group you want to fit in with. Versus if you're the best true, authentic version of yourself, that works in the opposite way because people who relate to you, the true, authentic version of you, are going to gravitate to you and they're going to see your authenticity. And I think I've got some severe people pleasers in my life, and those are like, are you ever with someone, hey, where do you want to go for dinner? Wherever you want to go is fine. Where do you want to go on vacation? I don't know, whatever you want to do. It's kind of you don't really want to hang out with people like that, right? Like, don't you have any personality? Like, who are you really? So people aren't attracted to people like that. And that's one very far end of the spectrum. But I think of people like Pete and some of the big thought leaders of our day, those people don't give a shit. They're doing what they think is right. They're doing what they want to do. And if people don't like it, fine, they can go read or do something else. But the people who are attracted to that and see that authenticity and see their vision really like it and appreciate that person more. And it just makes for a more authentic life.
Perfect. The other thing is, like, with this podcast, right? We cuss and we get a lot of flack for that, but we also draw people in that want to hear like authentic conversations, and we can't make everyone happy. And we like made a conscious decision at the very beginning before we even started recording. It's just like, hey, we're going to do it this way because we want to work with sponsors that don't sort of suppress what we want to say. And that's very important to us. So like, we're attracting the people that want to check out that kind of material. And unfortunately, you know, sorry, people that drive with kids in their car, sometimes they're caught off guard and surprised. But like, we've marked it how it should be marked as explicit. But anyway, that's just a specific example. Now, as we wrap up here, I don't know if I actually have any answers to this, but like, do we have any tips for people that are aware that they're driven by the quote outer scorecard? Can you think of any ways to help shape their thinking in a more inward direction?
Yes, I think they should stop what they're doing and go to the Wait But Why blog. And there's an episode on there, which we'll put in the show notes, but it's why you should stop caring about what other people think. And I think that's the actual title of it, but that explains how, well, you might be happy with your outer scorecard, satisfying personality, buying this car or living in the place or doing certain things. In the end, you're going to live a much more satisfying life if you act like who you're supposed to be and embrace your true, authentic self and not try to make other people happy.
I think that was one of the first articles you sent when we were talking about doing this show, like whatever, 3 years ago. And I was like, oh yeah, we should record an episode. Or you were like, hey, we should record an episode on that. So yeah, it's like held true. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember. And I guess I've got one other tip real quick, but I'm sorry I interrupted you, Doug. Was that the end of your thought? Or
yeah, that was it. Just
okay.
like, yeah, it's like, that's like a core piece of like the show, I think.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend recently. We were talking about this very thing. And he's like, well, how will I know what is the authentic version of you? Like he said that to me. It's like, well, when I start talking about farts and be my lewd authentic self or something like that. And I think everyone should consider that. And that might be, we talked about alcohol or fire, maybe enables you to be a pure version of yourself. But even though we're pure, when we're like that, we don't always act like that. We still feel pressure in situations. But I think all of us should consider when we think we were pure, so put yourself in a position with the people who you feel most comfortable around, maybe your spouse or your best friend or whatever, someone who you're really good, and ask yourself why you don't act like that around everyone else and how you can get to that point around other people.
I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Do you have any other thoughts on this?
No, that's it. But I guess one other thought. I don't know if there's a more important goal in life to strive for than that, because I think that's at the basis of all happiness. If you're trying to act like someone else, you're living someone else's version of happiness too, and not your own. So again, we'll talk a lot more about this on the mindset episode and how strategies for getting to these points. Yeah, just be you. Unless you're an asshole, then maybe don't be you. But assholes probably don't really know who they are. They probably think they're great.
So the next episode is going to be about purpose. So be sure to make sure you are subscribed for that. And Carl, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Yeah. See you, Doug.
Thanks for listening to the show. That was the Mile High 5 podcast, and I'm Doug Cunnington. If you dig the show, please do 3 things for us. Number 1, tell a friend, a family member, an enemy about the show. We really don't care who you tell. Maybe forward them a specific show that you know that they will like. It's the single most helpful thing that you can do to spread the word. It's like giving us a virtual high five, and actually we don't give high fives in person, so the virtual kind's pretty good. And more importantly, your friend or family member or even your enemy will appreciate the fact that you were thinking of them. Number 2, make sure you're following or subscribed on your podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, whatever you're using, and that way you won't miss a show. And number 3, please leave us a rating and review. We read them on the show occasionally, and you might hear yours out there on an upcoming episode. Quick disclaimer, this show is not financial or legal advice. I'd actually be surprised if it sounded like it. It's really just for entertainment, and that's at least what we're hoping for. But seriously, get advice from professionals. So we'll catch y'all next week.
So, Doug, I had an interesting conversation a couple of months ago with our mutual friend who works at Lowe's, whose name just left my brain. It's been a hectic morning. Cheryl, that's right. And she was telling me, and now I'm trying to remember exactly what she said. I believe she told me that she thinks that you look like one of the Hallmark movie stars. I know you're a big fan of the Hallmark movies, and apparently, yeah, there's a Hallmark movie star who looks just like you. And I'm Googling this right now in real time to see if I can figure this out. I know you don't like Google anymore, but I typed in Hallmark movie star bald, and I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to go to Google Images. Oh, there is some guy. Have you ever done this query, Doug?
All the time. I have like a news alert set up for that. But a lot of I am a fan of those movies. I started watching them when my mom was sick, so try to make fun of me now. But when my mom was sick, she was watching those, and she always watched those silly movies, and I think we made fun of her. But then I was like, hey, these are pretty good. They all turn out fine. There's always they follow a pretty formulaic pattern, and a lot of them are shot in Canada. It's a little known fact. There's a huge Canadian movie business and all that stuff. Beautiful settings. And I think there's a handful of like half Asian like actors that are in those movies. So maybe that's the correlation. I don't know. What do you think?
Okay. Well, I looked this up, Doug, and his name is Jack Turner, and he played Ben in the movie. Let's see here. One Winter Weekend. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't, but we'll have to check it out. Have you seen it?
I have not.
What does a topless scene look like? Did you search for that? Ben Turner topless?
No, but I will. Let's see. He starred opposite his co-star on the Hallmark Channel, and in the movie My Summer Prince. Wow.
Yeah, it's usually the same actors doing the same movies over and over again with a different setting. So great movies. Have you watched one yet?
I have never seen one. As soon as it comes on, I turn the channel quickly.
Man, you're missing out. Like for October, we watch scary movies all month long. Some horrific, just gory. Sometimes we watch it and then we like this happened last year. We had like bad dreams for like 2 nights straight. And we're like, all right, can we get through this? Because as soon as November hits, it's Hallmark movies for 2 months, baby.
Nice.
That's all we watch.
You have to refresh your brain. And I want to point out one other piece of work he did, which was a big acting stretch for him. I mean, you, Doug, he appeared in Lifetime's The Landlord. I know you're not a fan of managing rental properties, so that must have been a big acting stretch for you. And I'm proud of you. I heard it might be up for like what's the Canadian Oscar? Like, I forget, something to do with snow or cold or I don't know. We're probably offending all our Canadian listeners right now, but we mean no disrespect. I love Canada.
Yeah, Canada's great. Canadians are awesome.